So Square dropped a bunch of bombs a few days ago and the internet kind of went crazy for a bit. We don't usually get updates like this, so it's a pretty big deal whenever Square throws us a bone. This won't be some formal news update or solely a report on the announcements, but just me sharing my initial thoughts and reactions to it, cause boy, we have a lot to go over. Fair warning, I will be discussing a little bit of the remake story for context, so here is your spoiler tag. There, can you see it? Can you see it? It's right there. Okay, good. I'll start this off with the most underwhelming news in my opinion, the Final Fantasy VII First Soldier announcement. From the title, it sounds pretty cool. It's a battle royale set in the Final Fantasy VII universe, but 30 years in the past. It looks like this game is going to be some sort of origin story for the Shinra Soldier program. Now, don't get me wrong, I like battle royale games. I have tried playing the original H1Z1 a couple of years ago, and now I mostly play Warzone and a bit of Apex. My only gripe with this is that it's a mobile game. Granted, my only experience with a mobile battle royale is the Call of Duty mobile version, and I never really got into that because it's a lot more slow paced than what I'm used to. On the other hand, from what the trailer did show us, First Soldier is going to be a familiar yet unique experience. Unlike a typical BR, the characters can use various kinds of magic, presumably by picking up or equipping materia, cause duh, it's a Final Fantasy VII game. And apparently you can even summon the Lord of the Undead. Ifrit, what the fuck? Anyway, the backdrops they used are pretty much only seen in the Final Fantasy VII Remake, albeit scaled down and a less pretty version, but at least it's a fully rendered 3D environment where you can shoot guns and possibly blow up some stuff. I have a couple of friends that are interested in trying it, and maybe I'll dabble with it for a bit. I don't know if this is going to be great or not, since the only other experience Square has had with a third-person shooter set in the Final Fantasy VII universe, well, didn't go so well. I also don't know which team is developing this game, but I seriously hope there is no story aspect other than it being a 30-year prequel to the mainline FF7 game. If they do add some important narrative element that will be relevant in the upcoming games, I will smack a man.
Larry, what the hell are you doing?
Square also announced Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis, and I am pumped! Yes, I know, it's a mobile game too, but this is different. BRs on mobile aren't my cup of tea, but RPGs, more specifically JRPGs, I'd eat them up anywhere. And this reveal? Take my money. But in all seriousness, this news was pretty big because I never would have expected Square to announce something like this so soon, considering its release date is sometime in 2022. They opened this announcement with the phrase, "another possibility for a remake," and when people saw the updated smooth chibi 3D art style, we freaked out, and for a good reason. Now I know I stand with everyone in saying that this is generally the remake we didn't know we wanted. I'm not saying the current Final Fantasy VII remake is a bad remake, but it's technically not a remake because of the number of things that they changed, specifically the ending. Anyway, from the look of the teaser, Ever Crisis seems to be a remake of the original Final Fantasy VII in a brand new art style with a new type of battle system, which I will get to in a little bit, so don't worry. They added this phrase in the trailer that said, "an episodic return to Final Fantasy VII's world with a nostalgic visual twist." To be honest, I still don't know what this means. But I read from various websites that the game itself will tell Final Fantasy VII's story in chapters that apparently can be played out of order, whatever the hell that means. I still don't know what kind of story we're going to get on launch day, or more importantly, what parts of the story they're going to leave out, but I know for a fact that I will try to play this. I know I'm talking mostly about the original FF7 as getting a facelift and leaving out the part that Ever Crisis will be a compilation of all the stories of Final Fantasy VII. This includes Before Crisis, you know, the Japan exclusive mobile game from way back in the day, to Dirge of Cerberus, a PS2 game regarded mostly as a flop starring Vincent Valentine, and a gem that made us cry our eyeballs out, Crisis Core. And lastly, they added Advent Children to round out the series. The teaser doesn't show us scenes for Dirge or Before Crisis, but we do get a teaser of the Crisis Core opening with the same art style as the FF7 teaser. So it's safe to assume that all the games in this compilation will follow the same art style. But the main reason why I'm primarily talking about the mainline Final Fantasy VII facelift is because it needs one. Every other Final Fantasy game has gotten a much needed facelift. The original Final Fantasy and FF2 got updates for the PS1 and were later ported over to the PSP. Final Fantasy III and IV got 3D remakes, with 4 getting so many updated versions. Final Fantasy IX got the Steam version, which gave us updated sprites. Final Fantasy 8, 10, and 12 got remasters. Heck, even Final Fantasy 5 and 6 got facelifts on the mobile and Nintendo Switch versions. The original Final Fantasy 7 has been left in Polygon Central for almost 24 years, but they did it. Finally. Speaking of the Nintendo Switch, I seriously doubt that this game will get ported over there until they finish releasing all the chapters. Honestly, this looks like it'll turn into the same thing that the Final Fantasy 15 Pocket Edition was. On Square's website, it says that the game will be a free download with in-app purchases, which means expect to pay for the new chapters every month in 2022. Anyway, another thing I wanted to touch on for Ever Crisis was the battle system. Nomura in a couple of interviews mentioned that the original materia system would be making a return, so that's exciting. And it also looks like a form of the ATB system will be showcased. This kind of looks like the ATB system from Final Fantasy 13, where you could get a really long ATB bar that's divided into smaller bars, and each action will cost a number of those bars. There's also this thing on the lower right. I have no idea what it does, but my best guess is that it's a normal attack button like in the Final Fantasy 7 remake that shouldn't cost any ATB charge, but I can only speculate. Also, it doesn't seem like you'll get to move around in battle, so it feels more like the traditional turn-based battle system the purists prefer. Also, for some reason, Aerith is in the sequence for the first reactor. I don't know if this is just for trailer purposes or can you literally use any party member on the get-go. Your guess is as good as mine. Anyway, this mobile game looks promising. I'm not sure I totally buy into the whole chapter purchases, but I am more than willing to try it out on launch. 2 thumbs up for this Square. Finally, the biggest news. Final Fantasy VII Remake, Integrade. This was announced to finish off Sony's State of Play event. It seemed to be a standard announcement for the PS5 version of the game, where we would get to see a bunch of scenes in updated textures and 60 FPS glory. And then this happens.
Well, guys, your girl finally made it to Midgar. My name is Yuffie, Materia Hunter and Elite Special Forces operative for the new Wutai government.
Yes, our favorite materia hunting ninja finally gets her reveal, and she looks amazing, as expected. It looks like this side story with Yuffie is going to take place sometime after Chapter 7 or while Cloud is picking flowers with Aerith in Sector 5. It's kind of cool we get to see a bit of what happens to Avalanche after blowing up the second reactor. New perspectives of the same story are always interesting in my book. I can't quite piece together what Yuffie is doing in Midgar, but from what I can see from the teaser, Yuffie is there to help out another faction of Avalanche, I guess? We did learn in the remake that Avalanche is now a whole group with different factions and not just Barret and the Three Pancakes like in the original. I'd like to think that a part of the side story will interconnect with the main story in some way. I don't know, like maybe explaining that this faction was the one that arrived in the Shinra warehouse before Cloud could in Chapter 4. We don't know exactly when Yuffie arrives in Midgar because the way teasers are edited are usually misleading, but looking at this narratively, I have absolutely no idea what they're going for or why they're doing this. They added a new character named Sonun Kusakabe, who I could not remember from the original at all. I have no idea if he's a brand new character or maybe one of those mentioned in the Advent Children's side story novels like Kyrie was. Either way, he looks like a playable character with a staff as his weapon, kind of like a dragoon. We don't really get to see his moves as a player-controlled character, but we can see some synchronized moves between him and Yuffie, something we haven't seen in the main game. Yuffie's combat, by the way, looks so cool, and it's definitely something I look forward to playing. It seems like we'll get to explore a bunch of new areas in Midgar too, which is something that I found to be lacking in the remake. They also brought back a character named Wise or Vise. I don't know, it sounds like it's supposed to be German. I don't really know much about him other than the fact that he's a character from Dirge of Cerberus. Thank you, research. I didn't even know it was him until someone pointed it out. I've never played Dirge, but I am willing to give it a shot considering that stuff is starting to tie in now. As for the rest of the teaser, I'm pretty sure this side story won't take more than a couple of hours to complete. Maybe they'll add a couple of new achievements here and there, you know, the standard DLC treatment. Anyway, after that reveal, we get a showcase comparing the PS4's version to the updated PS5 version. Like I said, they updated the textures and lighting and bumped up the frame rate with some quality of life changes here and there. Honestly though, the textures are nice, but the improvement was hard to see in the video. I think the enhancements would be more noticeable on a 4K panel while you're actually playing the game though. RIP to my 1080p monitor. The improvement in frame rate is fantastic. Everything looks so much smoother on 60 frames per second. The lighting was also a big improvement, and we are seeing the PS5's capabilities for ray tracing. The quality of life stuff was also pretty standard, including the photo mode. Pretty nice that they finally added it in there. It was weird not having it for an HD RPG game. They also added a normal classic version. Now this should be common knowledge by now, but the standard classic version ran on the easy difficulty, which you couldn't change, and the remixed version of easy is almost child's play. With the normal classic mode, it's just going to be the same thing, but a little bit harder, I guess. I don't really find the joy in it. The regular gameplay still feels like a turn-based system regardless, but to each their own. And finally, the improvement that I am most excited about, the load times. PS4 load times for the Final Fantasy VII Remake are horrible. If you're trying to get the Platinum Trophy and you'd like to skip cutscenes you've already seen, well, you'll be staring at a loading screen for about the same amount of time you would have spent watching the cutscene in the first place. But the PS5's enhancement... hot damn, that was fast! Anyway, the teaser ends with an announcement that the players who bought the game on PS4 can get a free upgrade, much like the other cross-generational games, and you can carry the save data over, which is awesome. The only unfortunate news this brings is that the new Yuffie episode is available only for PS5. I haven't heard any plans of having them ported over to the PS4, so if you want to play the new episode, you're going to have to secure a PS5 if you don't already have one. And to make matters more inconvenient, the Yuffie episode does not come free with the remake's PS5 upgrade, and you are going to have to purchase it separately. Big sad. Also, for people wondering, the free games on PS Plus for the PS4 this month include the Final Fantasy VII Remake, but if you get that version, you won't be able to upgrade to the PS5 version unless you actually purchase it. Honestly, at this point, I can't even defend the fact that Square is milking Final Fantasy VII for all the money it can make. I still don't own a PS5 because of the limited supplies and all, but I will have to secure one if I want to play the Yuffie DLC on release date. And as much as I dislike the fact that this game is being released in snippets, I can't help but buy into it because of what the remake did. I'll save most of my thoughts for when I do my Final Fantasy VII Remake review, but I will say this. They changed the story so much and so significantly that no one in the world other than the people directly involved with the making of the game know what's going to happen next. And there's a great possibility they don't even know what's going to happen next. There are theories floating around and some sound very plausible, but they'll stay as theories until we get some concrete news regarding the next installments of the remake. I don't want to praise Square for this move to generate intrigue because they're blatantly milking the money out of us, but their strategy is working, you have to admit. I, for one, will do my best to secure PS5 in that time frame, but I wouldn't be surprised if I couldn't. And I'm pretty sure it's the same for a lot of people who also saw the trailer. Anyway, that's all for me. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you guys thought of the teasers. If you agree or disagree with something I said, leave a comment down below so we can have a discussion, hopefully a fruitful one. Also, if you guys are new around here, please leave a like and subscribe. I have multiple playthroughs on my channel ranging from Kingdom Hearts and Final Fantasy games. I have just finished uploading my KH3 playthrough, so check it out if you'd like. I am in the middle of getting my Platinum Trophy for the Final Fantasy VII Remake, and I post my progress on that every once in a while. I'll leave links in the description below for all of them. Thanks a ton everyone for watching, and I'll see you guys around.